Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney is off to Europe for his first international trip as the country's leader. Host of Real Ag Radio, our good friend Shaun Haney joins us now for the latest. And Shaun, I just assume everybody's looking for friends right now. Let's talk about this trip and why the Prime Minister decided to make this trek to Europe for the first time.
Yeah, it's great to be with you here this morning. So I think you described that very well. Canada really looking for some friends as of this moment. A pretty stiff trade war battle with the U.S., of course, known well very much in this audience, as well as some of the tariffs that China put on just over a week ago. So Mr. Carney is on his first international trip as Prime Minister since he was sworn in just this past Friday. He's hoping to show up some support for Canada in the face of some real economic and political threats posed by U.S. President Donald Trump. I found it interesting that in the joint press conference that Prime Minister Carney had with the leader of France, Mr. Macron, they talked about the benefits of free trade, yet in some kind of ironic way, France has still not ratified the CETA agreement that was signed back in October of 2016. So if Canada's going to find some friends in France, they better convince them to sign that free trade agreement. Later this afternoon, he's going to head to London, and he's going to meet with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and then also King Charles III.
So let's talk about Carney visiting with President Trump. Prime Minister, has there been any kind of talk with that? Does a phone call have to happen first before anybody kind of meets together in a room?
Yeah, in terms of a face-to-face, not really clear on whether that's going to happen before an election. So there's a lot of speculation that there's going to be an election call here this week, which would kind of, once that writ drops, probably a meeting with President Trump is going to be out of the question. Carney kind of avoided, or I guess skirted around the question about meeting with President Trump on Friday. He was a little bit, I wouldn't say smug about it, but he just sort of didn't really want to chat about it. He did say that before he would meet with President Trump, he wanted Canada's sovereignty respected. Now, the U.S. ambassador to Canada did acknowledge Canada's sovereignty last week. Of course, all of this is about the fact that President Trump continues to talk about Canada becoming the 51st state.
I mean, what a time for Prime Minister Carney really to enter the scene at this point and take this seat. So you talk about the election coming up. I know there were talks that it would happen prior to March 24th. Where do we stand on that? What are you hearing?
Yeah, I think, based on how the Liberals have really gained in the polls, much of that being Canadians seeming to have a more confidence in Mr. Carney to negotiate with the President Trump over Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party. We have to have an election in Canada before the end of October or middle of October. But all roads seem to think, or a lot of people talking about how we will see an election called here potentially even as early as this week, which would potentially make Mr. Carney, if he is to lose that election, one of the shortest prime minister stints in the country's history.
Well, Shaun, thank you so much. Of course, we're going to be watching this as it unfolds. Host of Real Ag Radio, that is Shaun Haney. Always appreciate you, Shaun, being here. Real Ag Radio update brought to you by Economics. You can go to nutrient-economics.com for the latest crop nutrition research and information. You want to catch Shaun on his show, Real Ag Radio. It airs 4:30 p.m. Eastern weekdays on Rural Radio Channel 147. That's on Sirius XM. And love having him and his team join us here on Market Day Report.